As Michael had said, I'm Tina Hagelin with InterDyn BMI. I'm the iMIS Practice Manager, and today we're going to look at iMIS 20.2, which is the latest and greatest version that's available. We're going to take a look at the staff and the RISE, or RISE in public site are pretty much interchangeable. So if you see those two words, they basically mean the same thing. So it would be the public-facing site of the iMIS 20.2 product. All right, so with the staff site, we're going to focus on a few key pieces, right? We have about an hour today, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time in the staff site and then a little bit of time in the RISE site, just to kind of give an overview of what's now available in the newer version. We'll focus on dashboards. There's a number of dashboards that have been created that just come with the software out of the box. Out of the box means when you install it, it's just there. And when the software is installed and you have these dashboards, they come a certain way, but they can be configured, which means your staff has the ability to change them, modify, add to them, and kind of tweak them as needed, right? And you don't have to be a programmer to do that. If you have some IQA training and then what we call RISE training, which is kind of the content management system, you'll be able to do all of those things on your own, which is great. So we'll review some of the dashboards, but also keep in mind that you can create your own dashboards. So if you decide, gosh, we should think about creating an executive level dashboard, or maybe something geared more towards just reporting for a particular department in your organization, that is can all be configured quite easily. The other thing we'll focus on is many of you are most familiar with the desktop, or in iMIS 20, ASI, the makers of iMIS, actually refer to it as the Advanced Accounting Console. So I want to spend a little bit of time getting you familiar with, okay, well, this is how we do something in the desktop, and this is how the staff site could replace that functionality. So if you're used to manage customers, we'll go through and look to see, okay, well, if I needed to find a record, if I had to find an individual or an organization or company, how do I do that? And then the next step, the next question someone would say is, okay, so as soon as I find this individual or company, how do I then begin to update data? So in the staff site, we actually call that managing their profiles. So that's where the profile is, where you would go to make data edits for user-defined, demographic information, name, address, activity updates, things like that. We'll also take a peek at member engagement. So that's a newer feature in iMIS 20.2. Member engagement is a way to kind of gauge how active your members are or how inactive. So what that can do is it allow you to look at your membership and say, okay, these particular items will have scores associated with them. So if you have someone on a committee, maybe they score a little bit higher than somebody who's not active on committees. Maybe if someone attends an annual meeting, they, have a score of, 2. For every item that they have, it's a cumulative. So, and you get to decide, on the ranking how much each piece means, because every organization is different, but ASI has actually incorporated scripts to start with. So we'll look at member engagement. So one nice thing is you can actually score the whole database, and then you can look at who are your most active and inactive, and if you have members who used to be active and now they're starting to become a little more inactive, those may be your members at risk, so then you could reach out to them. Another item we're going to take a look at today is the communication suite. So in iMIS 20.2, we now have a built-in email system. We also have an advanced email marketing that goes along with that does statistical information as far as who opened it, bounce backs, clicks, things like that. And we'll also take a peek at process automation, which would be the tool that will allow for alerts on screens, and that on the different screens, basically they're the web pages, right? So on that web page, you can have an alert for both staff or maybe an individual coming to your site to purchase a product, register for an event, you can actually show them an alert and actually maybe guide them through the process. And then we also have the ability to schedule triggered or scheduled tasks. So if you wanted to automatically send out emails to new members to say, hey, welcome to the organization, some of those features are actually built in already, and you can just configure some of the email templates. So Communication Suite and Process Automation actually works together. So you can use a Communication Suite template, and the template can be can have an HTML, we call them HTML templates, right? So what I'll show you today is very much kind of marketed towards ASI, the makers of iMIS, but you can change it so it has your logo, it has your branding look and feel. So that's really nice. And then, of course, whenever Process Automation or Communication Suite sends something out, we have kind of our tattletale, which is, we call it recent interactions, or most of you will be more familiar with activities. So then you can always kind of track back to say, okay, well, what are we sending out, and are they actually receiving it? All right, so that's kind of what we're going to look for in the staff site. So at this point, I'll actually switch over and do a live demo in the staff site. So this is the latest version of iMIS, and I'm using a demo environment today, so everything you're looking at is kind of, we'll just call it dummy data. So I actually went to the site and logged in already. I'm logged in as someone who would be considered a system admin, so I have, you'll see my screens might look really busy, but I have access to everything. So of course, based on security, you can add or remove, functionality as needed. So as soon as I logged in, I come to what we call a dashboard page. So community in the staff site would be equivalent to like manage customers in the desktop. The nice thing here is we come in and we say, oh, look at this. We can see that we have 5,005 individuals in our database, 283 organizations. So remember, this just comes out of the box, but if you decide, gosh, maybe I don't want to call it individuals, or maybe I want to specifically call out certain members, right? If you have a certain member type, everything's based off of IQA, and here it will actually allow me to edit the source query, which would be IQA on the fly. So when I said earlier, hey, you can just configure it and change it the way that you'd actually want it, that can actually be done here. So if you've worked with IQA at all, the screen will should be a little bit familiar to you. So then here, if you wanted to, we could change the filter to say, oh, right now we're just saying all individuals in the database. We're not really focusing on member type. So here, if we decided, gosh, we just want to look at certain member types, we could come in here and say member type is equal to maybe associate members and affiliate member. And then I can save and close. Remember, I have this is my demo environment, so I kind of went from, I think my number was 5,000 down to 41, and that's how easy it is to configure it, right? So, of course, having some training in IQA will be very helpful because a lot of these screens are made up of IQA. All right, so here is our dashboard. The other thing we have available is, on our web page, we only have so much real estate, right? So that means we only have so much room on the screen, but we also have a number of iParts. So when you actually start to use the RISE product, you have all of these different, we call iParts, that are available to you. So we have chart iParts, graph iParts. They're really associated with IQA, but we also have like this tabbed iPart, and we actually call it a CCO. It's a content collection organizer, which means you can have multiple pieces of content on each on each tab. So this is actually an IQA query that says, hey, who are my top committees? Who are my top participants? And you can actually kind of expand that out to get more information. Who are my top organizations? And then we can have other queries that you can kind of change back and forth to. Data integrity. Just think about if you have data issues, you could actually have a whole dashboard to help you focus on cleaning up data. And the nice thing is, whenever you use an IQA query, you can always drill down a little bit further. So something about Margie's record says, there's probably a problem here. And it says, oh, Margie's missing an email. But we also have all these other ones to say, these users are locked out, this individual is not linked to a company, and blah, blah, blah. You really get to decide what queries you need to create for your organization. You also have the ability to export out to multiple types of files. But here, you can drill down to Margie's record automatically. And what this does is it will bring me to Margie's profile. And a moment ago, I had said, okay, so if you're used to manage customers, you typically do find, and you'd find Margie's record, and then it would pull it up on the screen, right? So this is the same equivalent. So we see Margie's record here. So if we decided, okay, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, all right, we're missing some information. So I could come down here and decide, oh, her email is missing. And maybe that's something your organization proactively looks to collect, and you've gotten Margie's email now. Now we can say it's, I know I'm not very creative, but we'll just do test@test.com. So, instead of in the desktop where you'd maybe go to user define, here you have this screen to work with, right? We call it the profile screen. And then again, we have these tab controls. But the nice thing is this profile page, this is the way that it comes out of the box. So if you decide, well, we wouldn't use that, or we'd like this over here, or we want the email here right away, or there's a piece of information. We want to see the paid through date right away. Or I want an alert show up on the screen to say, hey, Margie hasn't paid, or maybe the organization, ABC, whatever it is, you can also have an alert. And we'll show you that here in a little bit, kind of how the alerts work. All right, so we're focusing on dashboards. I will sneak back here for a moment. I think I might actually find a little bit more active record. Margie has a score of 57, okay? So, which is great, and if we look at this, she's had 6 event registrations. Well, I know of a member, an individual in the organization who's a little bit, he's very engaged, and he does a lot with his organization, and his engagement score and his record has much more information, so it'll look nicer on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to finding records. So just like if you were in Manage Customers, we have something over on the left navigation that says Find Contacts. One thing I want to point out is this again is based off of IQA. So if you look at this and you say, we will never use, this is silly, but maybe we don't use the ID field to search, right? Maybe you want the email field. It's just a filter, and it can be added very easily to the screen, and we also have different ways we can search. So any one of these queries can be used to do a search. So I'm going to find an individual. His name is John Tan, and he's pretty active within the organization. So when I do the find, and I have a people search and an organization search, if you had other key groups of people you wanted to search for and really have them segmented out, we could do that as well. We would just add another tab and we'd use an IQA query to find them. So here we're going to go ahead and look at John Tan's record. It will bring us to his profile, and we'll see, look at, we're scoring him and we say, gosh, he's a leader. He has a score of like 99, and here's his engagement. He's registered for 24 events, 4 donations, purchases. He's posts in our communities, our social networking area, and this is in 2015, and now in 2016 we can kind of see what's going on here too. So that's actually how we find a record and the managing of the profile, and then we kind of touched on the whole member engagement. Okay, so that was a quick peek at that area, how you'd actually pull up a record. The other thing that's kind of with the staff site, if you're used to managing your roster, right? So you'll notice here's John Tan, and I can tell, oh, he's connected to Versiton. So this is the organization he's connected to. You can actually click, and this is kind of how you use the staff site to move from record to record. We could always go back and do a find, but we also have these other places we can kind of click and jump to other records. So now I'm on Versiton's record, and you'll actually notice, gosh, there's a Versiton headquarters. So we're kind of like, there's actually 3 levels on his record. But here is where we can go to contacts and see everyone who's connected to Versiton. And then you can easily jump from record to record. So if I wanted to then jump to Teresa Spain's record, I could click here, and we'd go to Teresa's record. All right, so now I think at this point we're going to move on to take a peek at the communication suite, which is the ability to email members either one-off or en masse. You'll notice even on the profile, I have the ability to click email. So I could do a one-off email here, and I'll just show you the screen quick, but then we're going to jump over to the communication suite, the setup area. So if I wanted to send Teresa an email, I could start here and kind of go from scratch, right? Build out. One other thing to note is it's very much like a word merge, right? You have the ability to insert fields, and we do have some fields that are available to us kind of like out of the box. It's the way it comes. But if we create communications with additional IQA queries, so maybe we're doing things with event registration, if your IQAs that you're kind of running your communication off of includes the event name, description, you know, whatever else you have in your query, you can merge those in here as well. I'll just show you quickly here. Maybe I don't want to send Teresa an email and me have to kind of draft it myself. Maybe internally our procedures are we always use a template, right? So maybe I want to offer her new member offers. So look what happens. It automatically loads up my template. And you can see that field looks a little odd, right? It says party, first name. That actually will merge in Teresa's name. And I can actually preview it before it goes out. So if I had multiple records I was going to send, I could preview or go to next, and we can send it all when we're ready. And then when this actually goes out to Teresa, we could go back to her profile, which let's go ahead and do that. Let's jump back to Teresa's record for a moment, and I'll show you where the recent interactions. I didn't actually send out that email, but I do want to show you just like the recent interactions. So under the history, here we go. Here's all the recent interactions. So this will tell you all of the emails that have been sent out. You know, what exactly was sent, and was it queued, was it dropped, what happened? Oh, the address bounce. Well, we're in a test environment, so that actually makes sense. But then we can also see, gosh, what actually went out to Teresa? Oh, here you go. Here's the information about the conference. So that's kind of the one-off email. But let's jump to the communication suite where the templates are actually created, because you have the ability to create new templates, or you can use samples. You'll notice that these guys here have little locks on them. It means that they're a system template, but if you wanted to create your own, we could say, you know what, we want to use the new member welcome email. We'll just do a save as. And I'll say, you know, I'm going to create one for InterDyn. And we could create a new folder. I'm just going to put it under samples here to make it easy. And then in here, this is where I'd come in and in my template, I would remove that image and I would place in my own. So I'd upload my organization's image. Of course, I don't believe I have one, but you know, let's just plug in something that looks nice maybe. Oh, those aren't very fancy, are they? This one's, well, maybe annual conference. Perfect, good enough for now, for our example. And then we'd go ahead and save that, and now that template would be available to us. So here's kind of full circle, right? So here's our new member welcome email. Each module kind of has its own dashboard, right? So we were in community and we had a dashboard for that, but we also have a dashboard for membership. So on this dashboard, we can kind of slice and dice how many new members, renewals, you know, this is just kind of how it comes out of the box, but we could add our own in here as well. If you wanted to see how many new members, how many are renewed, how many are lapsed, some of this is built. So I actually have this built-in new members list, right? And it's actually works with an IQA query. So it shows me, based off the IQA query, I must say in the last, you know, whatever period of time it was. So it says, okay, in the last couple months, show me who's new. Then I can enable an option on this iPart that says, when you have this IQA list, if you want to email them, we'll allow that, right? So it'll show the email button. This then works with the communication suite. And we can use this with our new template that we created. Ta-da! And when we preview, we can kind of see, oh, we're going to send something to Francis and Carlo and Henry and so on. So that's how the communication suite works, right? It gives us a nice way to send emails without having to export data out of the system, and it gives us that nice little tattletale, right? The recent interaction says, okay, we sent emails, and this is when it went, and this is what it said. All right, so that's the communication suite. So the final piece I want to show is process automation. So under RISE, we have process automation. What this does is this tool allows us to set up alerts and actual scheduled tasks. So if we look at an alert, right, let's see. So this one here will actually show us, and we have to decide where we're going to put it on the screen. I'll actually show you an alert on the screen here in a moment. But first we have to have the data source, which is just a query. So the system heavily relies on IQA, so you'll really want to make sure that you have IQA training to use these tools. And then we use conditions, which is the same IQA query. And then here we'll say, well, what's the alert? And the alert is, unfortunately I can't see my little picture here, but it just says, you know what, the mobile phone's missing. Okay, fine. And you have the ability to add the alerts and the schedules, like any one of these items, to then like a group. So it says an alert set. So we have this set. So within the set you could say, hey, maybe I have one for missing phone, missing address, missing, you know, ABC, whatever they are. You could actually have all of these alerts kind of line up one after the other, and it only shows it if something's missing, right? So it's not like you're going to have 15 alerts going down the side. If there's only 2 things that are missing, it just shows the 2. And then we also have a scheduled task. So we have event confirmation email, right? Same concept here, but this is scheduled, so it will run a certain period of time. Let's actually take a peek here. But it's actually using, when it says send a communication, so there's actually a template called event confirmation that we're using, and the data source here is an IQA query for registrations. And then it will also kind of send you, you have a log. So, right, you can come in here and kind of check to see, gosh, is it working? Is there anything wrong? And then I kind of skipped over this piece, but it needs to know, right, when is it supposed to send this? So here it says, whenever something gets inserted into order meet, which it's just a table that captures information about, yep, somebody registered for a meeting, perfect, okay. So as soon as someone actually completes the registration process, you can send an event confirmation and it can look however you want it to. And in our data source, you know, whatever you have added into that IQA query is what you can merge into your email. So let's actually pull up a record and look at, I'll point out an alert on the staff site, and then after that we'll go ahead and move on to the RISE or the public-facing site. We have used community and find contacts, but there's a couple other ways you can find people as well. In the keyword search, I could actually just type in John Tan and pull them up through here. If I scroll down a little bit, here are those alerts in action. We have an alert that says, hey, let me know if John's expiring sometime soon. And we also have an alert that says, hey, tell me what things John is registered for that's coming up. So if by chance you're sending him an email or he calls on the phone, you could say, oh, we noticed that your renewals, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just a way to educate your staff. And the other thing, so there's a third way too, right? We kind of did find contacts, keyword search, but we also have this tool called on behalf of, right? So right now, it actually shows that I'm logged in as Brian Murphy, which is a staff person. A third way I could find a record is on behalf of. So let's actually look for someone else. I'm going to look for Teresa. Again, we can have multiple queries that we can find data by. Oh, there's Teresa's record. I'll go ahead and find her. Notice what happens to the menu on top. It turns orange. And then what the software thinks, right, iMIS thinks, or the staff site says, every time you do something now, while this bar is orange, means you're going to do it on behalf of Teresa. So if you go do an event registration, right, so if I came over to events and said, hey, I'm going to find an event, and we go to register, let's look at the annual meeting maybe, an annual conference. You'll notice it says, oh, register Teresa. It says, oh yeah, we're working on behalf of Teresa right now. So anything we do, whether we pay dues, we register Teresa for an event, we purchase a product, so anything that happens, it knows it's for Teresa. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. I know that's kind of a brief overview of the staff site. So hopefully that kind of gave you a good taste. So I'm going to sneak back over to my PowerPoint, and I'm going to come back over to the right side here. So we covered all of these pieces that I kind of bulleted. So the next thing we're going to focus on is the RISE site or the public site. So it's going to be the site that individuals come to get information about your organization, right? Whether that's content or they want to manage their profile or look at a directory, look at committee information, register for events, purchase a product in your store, use communities, which is the whole social networking, and that would be like blogs and announcements and even a resource library. So if you have a lot of committees and they want a place to store their documents, so maybe your board of directors wants a place to collaborate that they only have access to, and they want to store their board minutes, and then it also allows those board members to subscribe to the community, so whenever someone posts, they'll automatically get an update to say, hey, go check out the site, somebody's updated some information. And then we'll also look at the RISE site as far as content management, because you know, the biggest selling feature I think of iMIS is it's everything is integrated, right? It's the way that your staff actually does their day-to-day work, so process registrations, membership, name, address, user defined, all of that, as well as you have the fully integrated website that has your content management, as well as any of the profile updates. It's very geared towards self-service, and everything's completely integrated, and once you install it, it's just there. There's nothing special that we need to do other than typically you go through training, right? We need to teach you how to use the product. And then once you're trained, you'll look at it and you'll say, okay, I see that this is the way that the profile looks out of the box, but we want to add our demographic information. We want to capture about organizations or individuals, or we want the directory to look a certain way, or we only want to show certain committees, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the staff site, or I'm sorry, the Rise/public site, right? So you'll notice it very much is geared towards ASI right now, so iMIS. So this is again a demo site. Because it looks this way out of the box does not mean it has to continue to look like this. We do something called a reskin, which makes it look more with your branding, fonts, colors, all that good stuff. I will pull up a site that look like this to start with, and then this is now what it looks like afterwards. The site looks completely different, right? Again, here's another site. Look just like that other site out of the box, and this is now what it looks like. So, so aesthetically, it can be, we call it a reskin. We reskin it to have it look the way that you want it to look. It's completely responsive, right? So responsive means whether someone is using their laptop, looking at a larger monitor, all the way down to, so watch what happens. I'm just going to keep going down. So now maybe I'm on my iPad. Oop, look at everything moved from words to icons and goes vertically. So there really isn't a reason, right? You wouldn't have to have a mobile site unless you wanted to. I mean, usually when organizations are now implementing mobile sites, it's because they're scaling it back. They're not showing them everything that's on the what we call the full website. So then here, we call this little hamburger. It's a cute little name for it. But then when you click on the hamburger, you see all of your navigation items, but everything just goes vertical. And that's just all standard out of the box, right? Just the way it comes. I'm going to go ahead and log in as John Tan. So we've kind of used that record all day today. So he's just a member, although he is a member that has what we call company admin rights. So he would be able to manage all the records at his organization. And you actually have to grant that as a role. Not everyone gets to do that. You get to decide. This first page that John comes to, he was redirected from the home page to something we call the member home. It gives you the opportunity to kind of feed John information that he says that he's interested in, right? So we've actually had this geared towards maybe John says he's interested in A, B, and C. So we actually show him information about A, B, and C, right? Then he thinks, oh gosh, the organization really knows me. You know, that's great. Where maybe if Teresa Spain logged in, she would see something different. So just kind of tuck that away. You can really personalize the user's experience. And then you'll see again, oh, here's some alerts, those process automation alerts. It's saying, hey, look, John, you're about ready to expire. He could then click Renew Now. This demo environment assumes that the the member is paying for his own dues, and that's not always the case. So if it was really maybe John actually holds the membership, but maybe Versaton actually pays. If that was the case, we would actually just go to Versaton, and Versaton would have the renew, and then it would show the amount for the list bill. So Versaton would actually be responsible for paying for all of the individual members underneath them. So that is also a feature of iMIS out of the box. This demo in particular actually just assumes we have individual memberships and they're paying for themselves. All right, so once John's logged in, he can go over to his profile. Again, this profile is, this is the way that the profile looks out of the box. If you decide, gosh, I don't want it to look like this, we want to make sure that we have, these particular things right away so they can see. It's just, I can't stress enough to say, it's just a web page, and because it is, you can design it how you want. So maybe you want addresses up here, maybe you don't care about this information, right? We just remove it. And that's the whole piece about we train you how to move around, move things around, add new iParts, remove iParts. So that's one thing it's pretty flexible. So here we're just going to make a quick change. So we're going to change him from VP to Executive Director. Fine. So he could make that change all in the background, right? So if you had a staff person on the staff site looking at John's record, immediately as soon as John clicks Save, it would say, oh, he's the Executive Director, right? And then we also have the ability to track the changes. So later on, if you wanted to say, hey, show me who's changing things on the website, we can run reports that will actually say, oh, I see John's been in there. He's making changes. All right, so here's kind of the profile. Again, we have tabs, so we can show, different information, organize it in a way that makes sense. We can say, oh, there's a renewal fee. Oh, here's the committees that, he's associated with. I'll actually click on the awards committee and give you a little taste of what the committee page looks like. So here, and this is kind of based on security, right? You can decide what does John get to see or not see. John can actually see, oh, on the awards committee that he's on, he can see all this information and he can export it, right? All based on security, so if you don't want to allow someone to do this, you don't have to. We also have the ability to allow them to run reports. So there are a number of out-of-the-box reports, or reports that come with the system, but if there's a report that you feel like, gosh, we really want to provide this to our members so they can just kind of do more self-service, this is kind of what the report would look like. They could export it to Excel, send it to PDF. Do you want to allow them to see current, future, past? You really get to decide what's that look like. All right, so we focused on profile. Let's go ahead and move to directory. So under membership directory, we have, this is a very simple directory, right? It's again based off of IQA, so you can add as many filters. Right now this is super simple. It just says find people. Okay, so we could say, well, let's find our friend John. Maybe not. We're actually in as John. Here we'll just we'll find a different John. Now, depending on security, you can show or as little information. This is what we call a public profile, right? We can have a directory where it can be open, so anyone can search for it, or you can say, nope, you got to log in. You have to have certain security, look at this directory, but then after they look at so maybe for this particular one, they have to log in, they do the search, they find the individual, and once the individual comes up, there's a very different profile that they see, because John sees certain information about himself, right? That's considered a member profile, but when John looks at someone else's profile that's not in his company, right? There's this whole company administrator piece that John has, so that's a little bit different. He has a little more rights than maybe the average user. But if he comes in and he says, hey, look, I want to contact John. I met him at an event. I want to find him. You also have a profile for public. What does the public get to see? Well, not very much, right? So you get to kind of decide, what do people see about themselves? What do they see about other members? What do they see about other organizations? There's actually about 7 profiles, 7 different profiles. It typically takes an organization longer to figure out what they want the profiles to look like than to actually do the work. All right, so that is, we've looked at profiles and directories, and we did a quick look at committees, the way that it looks. Let's take a peek at event registration. We did a moment ago. Let's go ahead and actually register John for the annual conference. Oh, it looks like I was testing before. Let's go ahead and jump over to his cart quick. I'm going to remove the conference and my product. You'll notice it'll say, oh, look at, I remember what you were viewing recently. Okay, well, we'll use that to jump here quick. So it will allow us to register. Remember, I'm logged in as John, so it'll let me register myself, or I could register a coworker if I wanted. At each event, on each specific event, you get to decide if you'll allow coworkers to register each other. It's just a feature you turn on or off, as well as if they can add guests. Here we see, oh, full conference, day 1, day 2, day 3. I'm just going to say, oh, I'm going to go to day 2. And then based off of day 2, it will only show me the appropriate functions or sessions that I can register for, right? Then I can put them in my itinerary. And then when I'm ready, I can go to checkout. And maybe I decide, oh gosh, I really need to purchase something, a particular, product in the store. So I can go to shop and say, oh yeah, I want to purchase this guide while I'm here. You can see, oh look, because you're a member, you save 35%. Okay, thank you. Put it in my cart. We also have donations and certification, but at this point I'm just going to proceed to checkout here quick so I can kind of stay on my schedule. Make sure I wrap this up at I have here about 15 minutes left. So then here we'll go ahead and check out so you can look at what the checkout process looks like. We can allow for pay now or pay later. Pay later would be a purchase order. It's a system setting, so you can either choose to use it or not use it. We're going to just use our test card quick. We'll submit our order. Oh no. Well, I'm in my test site. Well, maybe we'll just say we're going to pay later. And it'll just create the AR for me, and away we go. And then the user will see an order confirmation, and they'll also be emailed something that looks very similar to this, to their email, and they also have the ability to send it to somebody else. So if someone's attending an event and they need to be reimbursed, they could send a copy to accounting or something like that if they need to. I think the very last place I'm going to kind of go into here on the RISE, or the public site, is communities. We talked about it a little bit earlier on, where I had mentioned, hey, if your board wanted to have an area where they can collaborate together, we have the ability to add announcements or blogs. If they follow the community, what happens is if anything changes, they'll receive an email, or maybe you're very interested in the annual report. If we subscribe to the annual report, anytime somebody makes a change, it would email you and say, hey, look, here, it will actually start to give you some information, but then it will drive you to the website, the link that actually comes in the email to say, hey, something's been updated. the other thing here too is we have a resource library, which is a neat feature because it gives the board a place to store all of their meeting minutes or anything else. We have the annual report. There is the way that security works for communities is we actually have it can be moderated. So if you have a community where you're worried about maybe what individuals may say, you can actually have an approval process prior. You can either turn it on or off, and it can be per community. You can have someone be an administrator, and it doesn't actually have to be someone who's on staff if they have a login and a password. So maybe it's a board member, so they can be in charge. They can be the one adding new content as far as like new discussion items, and then everyone else kind of like replies to it. But that is kind of the, we did the quick kind of overview for both the staff and the RISE site. So I do want to circle back around and just let everyone know that these iMIS webinars that we have, we actually have them the third Thursday of every month, and they're also available out on the InterDyn BMI YouTube channel. So if you did a search for iMIS, you'd find all of our historical webinars that we've done. But I guess I want to maybe just stop and see if anyone has any questions.
We have not had any submitted yet, but we can give a quick minute in case anyone's mulling anything over. I guess, did you have anything else you wanted to touch on in the meantime?
Oh, I think we have a quick question that just came through.
Yeah, I do see that. So does RISE have LMS?
So RISE does not have a built-in LMS or learning management system, but there are built-in integrations. I know InterDyn has actually done integrations with both Adobe and Moodle, and I think there's a couple more. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there are a number that actually have integrations built. So what happens is you would use RISE, and then you'd have your LMS system, and then we'd have a integration that would actually talk back and forth to each other. So the login password would be, like we'd have a single sign-on between the two systems, and then we'd also configure RISE to talk to the LMS. Like when you'd set up the LMS, we'd make sure that we'd have things in sync, right? Like the courses, right? We'd have our product codes match. So there's just certain things you want to consider when you set up the LMS, but a lot of organizations do use learning management systems. So there's been kind of a lot of integrations that are kind of pre-built now that you can just snap in and away you go.
Perfect. It looks like there's nothing else submitted at this moment.
Okay. Got it. All right, so I think maybe the only other thing I can offer up is to say we're actually going to do a reporting series that's coming up here, and it's going to be a 4-part series, and we're going to do IQA beginning, IQA intermediate. Actually, there might be five webinars now that I think about it. So there's going to be IQA beginning, IQA intermediate, business objects. So we'll review how you actually, what makes up a business object and how to create one. And then we're going to do SSRS, so SQL reporting beginning and SQL reporting intermediate. And those are all like 1-hour sessions, again, similar to this. But I think those will be coming up here shortly. So just a heads up on that.
Awesome. And do you know if we're planning on emailing those out, the invitations for those?
Yeah, we actually had just got those on the calendar, so that will be, they'll start to show up on our calendar that goes out, but I think because it's a series, we'll be a little more proactive to let folks know, hey, it's like 5 in a row.
Great.
It
Well,
hasn't gone out yet, but it will be.
stay tuned for that then.
Yeah.
And still no questions, so if you didn't have anything else, we can always get out a few minutes early here.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Hopefully that gives everyone just a quick idea of, or a taste. If you haven't seen the product before, it just visually gives you a nice overview to say, hey, wow, it looks a little bit different than the desktop. So, and it's so much more flexible because you get to control it and configure it the way, make it work for your organization.
Perfect. Yeah, and if any later questions do come up, you can feel free to reach out to Tina or your account executive if you'd like to learn more about anything you heard during today's presentation. And on behalf of everyone at InterDyn BMI, we just want to thank you for your attendance and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.